Casey. I'm the Arts and Recreation Director for the City of Salida. And one of the things that I work on are capital projects in the parks. The Scout Hut is a building, if everybody probably knows where it's located. It is in Riverside Park, kind of at the very eastern end of Riverside Park. It was built in 1949, and it was by the Scouts and by the, is it VFW? Elks, thank you. I have that later in my notes. And it was given over to the city in the late 1980s when the Scouts could no longer afford to pay the insurance and do the upkeep and maintenance on that facility. The Department of Local Affairs, DOLA, supports a program through the University of Colorado Center for Community Development, whereby graduate students can get hands-on experience working with small communities to try to make projects come true for them. So in last year, the city applied for a grant through DOLA, and we were awarded that grant to do a study on the Scout Hut, on what it would take to bring the Scout Hut kind of up to code, for one thing, and then to make it a more open, more desirable place for folks to use. So we were awarded that grant. It was a 50-50 matching grant, so the city paid for half of the students' fees to come, and then the DOLA paid for the other half. The students were great. They held several community meetings where all of the Scout troops and Scout leaders were invited. City staff were invited, and we also had open public meetings where folks could come and visit with us if they wanted to. Jared, you can look through some of those. So, how many of you have been to the Scout Hut or used the Scout Hut on occasion and know kind of its status? Great. So, a lot of you know that the Scout Hut could use some tender loving care, right? Some of the issues there are that we're not meeting code really. Electrical stuff is kind of strung around the room. Down in the basement we have some really scary spaces, and we just would like to make it nice and clean it up a little bit. The groups that use the Scout Hut on a regular basis, of course, are the Boy and Girl Scout clubs. Salida Recreation, we use it all the time for programs. Arkansas Valley Music and Dance, anybody ever been to a contra dance or one of the AVMED? Actually, you have a country western dance coming up this weekend if you're so inclined. The Furnace Ministry, the Blue Waves, which is a kind of a taekwondo group. We have private rentals all the time, weddings, rehearsal dinners, family reunions, parties, trainings, and festivals. FIBARC uses it. Actually, the city uses the Scout Hut as a kind of a home base during FIBARC. The Salida Classic uses it. Fiberfest uses it. The Boy Scouts, when they do trips in the wintertime, clubs from all over the state come and they stay at the Scout Hut and they go skiing, and then they spend the night at the Scout Hut. So I'm doing this without the slideshow that we tried to bring up today, so sorry about that. The current layout of the building, for those of you who don't know, is upstairs. It's got a really nice wooden floor, and it's a big open space. And then a couple of years ago, we added outdoor restrooms so that those are available to the park users on a daily basis. And then down in the basement, there's a small kitchen. There are two really scary little bathrooms. There is the HVAC closet. And then there's a bunch of spaces that the Scouts use. They actually hold their meetings down in the basement there. The building is not ADA accessible in the basement. It is on the first floor. One of the things that we'd like to do in the upstairs is, in the 80s, when we had the first energy crisis, they put in a drop ceiling and they covered up some really nice wooden hewn trusses up in the top. So we'd like to kind of take the old ceiling out, expose the trusses, and kind of open up the building. We'd also like to take the far side of the building that faces the river and open that up with double doors and a big deck, a big wraparound deck that'll be on the riverside between the building and the trail. and you'll be able to see the river all the way around the edges. What we'd like to do in the basement is take out the existing walls. All you really see down there is a tiny little kitchen and a long hallway. We'd like to take those walls out, open it up so that the Scouts have a nicer space for meeting, and that also that space can be used for other meetings in the community. Sometimes when we have a function at the steam plant, we need extra meeting space, and it's a really nice walk down the river to get there, so we could use it as meeting space. We'd like to put in a warming kitchen so that folks who rent the facility can come in and have a nice meal catered for that event. But we also need a lot of storage down there. So we would add storage for both the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. They do keep a lot of their belongings there, their camping equipment, their supplies. And we'd like to put some nice restrooms in the basement, as well as an ADA entrance down to the basement so that the basement is ADA accessible. Talked about the main level already. The other thing we'd like to do on the main level is the Sackett Street entrance really needs to be kind of cleaned up and beefed up. Actually, the front porch that we have now is about to come off the front of the building, so we would make a new entrance that looks very similar to the entrance that we have from the park side or from the west side of the building. We would put more restrooms upstairs. We would put in a countertop with a sink area so that if you're having a meeting up there, you can have dishes and have your food set out on a buffet. We'd refinish the nice wooden floor. One of the things that the AvMad group told us when they met was they really like the Scout Hut because it has a nice wooden floor for dancing. And the deck and the windows and the view to the river. So that is kind of what we'd like to do there. We do have some big boards, and I think if a lot of you were at the Home and Garden Show, you probably saw some of the boards that show the look, but I can certainly pass around some of the pictures that you can see what we'd like to do. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try to field some questions this morning.
Theresa, I just wanted to add that I attended the presentation that Derek and Theresa did for the Noon Club on Monday, just a couple of weeks ago, and it was a great presentation. It explained what was going on, and then I got an opportunity to see this thing firsthand. I'm telling you what Theresa's saying is sort of underplayed a little bit. The basement looks like something that Ted Bundy and David Berkowitz and BTK would use to tie up their victims and keep them in there. I mean, it's really scary.
We don't have anybody tied up down there, but just so you know.
It really gives you the creeps when you go down there, just like Theresa said. So, and the deck that they're talking about is a huge wraparound deck, covered deck with lighting, and it basically doubles the space of the existing building, and it makes it very functional for weddings and all sorts of things. And if you're familiar with the Scout Hut, and you go around the riverside, basically there's no view to the river at all. So there's no connection to the park. So architecturally, this is going to connect the park to the Scout Hut and make it more usable than what it is right now. So it's a pretty amazing renovation. And I got a chance to sit next to John Gieselin, and his people are the ones that put together some of the budget numbers for it. And keep in mind, if you went to the Home and Garden Show, you saw all those plans and the renderings and so on that the students did. These are students that did the renderings and so on. So it's still in the concept phase, and they're going to have to hire real architects, real engineers, and so on, and really get that plan put together. But I think according to John, it's a pretty good budget. And the Noon Club really put them through the ringer, asked them a lot of questions, and I think they got all their questions answered. So again, I encourage you to ask questions and see what we can come up with.
Thank you, and thanks for bringing up budget. So the estimated cost of this project is $610,000. The City of Salida has $200,000 in our capital budget for 2015 to go towards this project. We plan to ask the Colorado Department of Local Affairs for $305,000. And the Rotary Club, what the commitment I'm hoping to get from the Rotary Clubs is that you guys will help us to raise that additional $100,000. So what that does, we put $100,000 with the $200,000, that gives us our match. The DOLA grants are 50-50 grant matches. So we have to have 50% of the money, they'll give us 50%. So again, total budget, $610,000. And one of the questions that we got at the noon Rotary Club last week was about, well, aren't you going to be pushing out the groups that have been using the building? Now it's going to be all really nice and fancy, and people are going to want it. Our commitment is this is still going to be the Scout Hut. This building is still going to be used for all the same purposes it's used for today. What the plan is would be to go to council and pretty much grandfather in the groups who are using it today and say, this is what they're paying today. They're getting a great deal. The Scouts pay $5 a person to spend the night. So that's a really great deal. The others, AvMad pays a portion of their door as their rental. So we do intend to keep our current user groups using the facility if they want to continue to use the facility. I saw some questions over.
Question for the two Rotary clubs is, would that be the intention that they would start using that facility for their meetings?
I'm going to let the Rotary answer that.
I think this would be a really good opportunity because, again, timing is really kind of tight today. But I'd like to have the representatives from the Rotary Club now kind of address our relationship and what, kind of the goal. So if either one of you want to kind of talk about fundraising, et cetera, et cetera.
There is a
Can you
committee.
stand up, please?
Well, there's a committee that we put together. As you know, now this confusion about secret meetings has been cleared up. There was a vote of confidence given by the executive committee, not the board. The executive committee, which oddly enough is made up of all board members, so it's kind of confusing, but at the time they were acting as the executive committee. The executive committee gave a vote of confidence for our club to go ahead and get going. So we started this with the Noon Club. The Noon Club is all in. The Noon Club is given $1,000 towards startup expenses. We have around 12 people on the committee. We've met twice. We're going to meet a third time this Thursday at the Senior Center. There is a representative from each club. John Dieslin is the representative from the Noon Club. I'm the representative from this club. We have 7 members of this club that have volunteered to be on that committee. There are 4 members from the Noon Club that have volunteered, plus we have city representatives on the committee as well. So things are well organized, and I'll tell you, this committee is one of the neatest committees I've worked with. Tom Mansheim is going to be our he's the president of High Country Bank. Tom is going to be our voice to the community. We don't officially have a chairman per se. We are all a team that works together. Nelson is the treasurer. Let's see, Paula Veltri is the secretary of the committee. And a number of decisions have already been made about organization and pass-through of funds, and I'll let Nelson kind of review those.
What we're going to do is each of the clubs will receive contributions through their foundations, and then pass those through as quickly as possible. We'll pass those through to the city. We're going to create a special bank account, and it will be under our club's foundation with our club's federal ID number to run the expenses through. Marketing costs, whatever we spend out of this $2,000. An issue that we've addressed is the donations are going to be coming in, and they're going to be specified for the renovation of the Scout Hut. And if something happens and that renovation gets delayed, those contributions, as an example, if we kept the contributions in each of the Rotary clubs and the foundations, and the project got stalled or delayed, we would need to return those contributions back to the donors because they're for a specific purpose. So what we're going to do is the city's goal and project for restoring the Scout Hut is a long-term goal, a long-term project. If something happens and the grant's not received and the project is delayed, they will still maintain these funds for use in renovating the Scout Hut. And that will take care of the issue of returning contributions back to the donors. It will also guarantee the donors that the money's going to be used for the purpose that they donate. I think that's about it. And we'll be making periodic financial reports to both of the clubs.
Nelson, I'm not sure I'm clear on this. So our charitable fund is going to have a bank account that is going to, all the funds are going to be run through? Each club's foundation, our foundation, our 501c3 and the Newton Club's 501c3, they will each receive contributions. Okay. And those contributions will be turned over as quickly as possible to the city. And the city will hold the funds.
Let me clarify that. Nelson missed our last meeting. That was what, the meeting before we decided to do that. Tom Mansheim, who's the president of High Country Bank, made an alternative suggestion that we open a new 501c3 that is not the Newton Club account or ours. We will use one of the two numbers, one of the two 501c3 numbers on that account, and it will be just for the Scout Hut. So those contributions will be deposited.
So we're going to put them in that account.
Into that account only. So there will be no commingling of funds in either one of the club 501c3 accounts.
So it's going to be a new organization?
No,
it's good. We'll have a special account and a restricted fund. In other words, you would set up a restricted fund.
It'll just be a bank account. There'll be one of the two clubs, 501c3 will have two bank accounts. One will be for the club funds, one will be under the same number, but it will be strictly for the Scout Hut. So all the funds for the Scout Hut will go into that account, and then they'll as quickly as possible, probably weekly, transfer immediately to the city's account.
And will we make representations to people that these contributions are tax deductible?
That's correct.
Yes. Yes.
And then, so we will be transferring the funds then to the city, and if this project does not work, will the funds be distributed back to the
The
donors?
city will be responsible for that. That's why we're going to get rid of the funds as quick as we can. We don't want to put the monkey on the earth back.
Okay. If the city feels they're going to continue, if this project fails, if the grants don't go through and the construction's not started immediately, then the city will be making the decision whether they're going to continue continue the process or refund the money.
Will that take place in this calendar year, do you think?
We would know whether we had obtained the DOLA funding. We would plan to apply on August 1st for that, and so we would know that in October. So construction, so that first step obviously would be to get the final drawings, hire architects and mechanical engineers. So I would expect we wouldn't be breaking ground until late spring or summer of 2016.
But we'd know by the end of this year.
We would know
that it
in
was go
October,
or not
yeah,
go.
whether we put
Right.
funding.
We'd know by the end of the year.
Who's the signer on this bank account?
I don't think that's been decided.
We haven't decided, but we have two. It depends on which club's 501c3 account we use.
Well, I would say that the treasurer of the charitable fund, if there's going to be a bank account, I'm going to be the signer. Which I'm fine with doing as long as we set this up correctly.
Yeah.
If we
Well,
need
that-
our number.
like I say, I don't think it makes any difference. We both have 501c3 accounts. Which club's number we use for the separate
I
account?
thought you just said they were going to.
I thought we were going to.
No, there's got to be one account.
Yes.
And it will use either or.
Whatever, it's our number, it should be signer on it.
Well, I think that's probably logical.
Okay, so you want $1,000, I think, Dave, right?
We've already, Steve, where are you? Go ahead.
I received an email request from Dave and his committee to support the marketing efforts for $1,000 to be put through the Budget and Finance Committee.
So we'll be meeting on that next week.
We will be having a meeting on that.
And is there a budget
the Noon Club gave 1,000, and you're requesting 1,000 from our club. Is this a one-time deal, or is there going to need to be additional contributions?
That's a good question.
And what's it going to be used for?
We have no idea. We have no idea. I think our goal is to use $2,000 as our fundraising budget. If something extracurricular comes up, then we'll have to address that as time goes on. We've already spent, Laura, where are you? What did we spend so far? About $250 we spent on brochures so far and on boards for display. There will be a kickoff party. Lori, that's going to be on the 22nd. Lori's one of the drivers behind that, and Elaine Alamang and Georgie is on that, working on that too. So there'll be a kickoff, and I'm not sure what the expenses of that will be, Ken. So we're going to try and work within that $2,000. If it looks like we're going to exceed it, we'll have to decide how to go about acquiring more marketing funds.
Is the city investing in the marketing process?
Yeah, with a lot of staff time into it, but.
We can't hear you, Dara. We can't hear Dara.
Well, we're gonna have the party at the Scout Hut, so we're gonna hear the very
Dara, we can't hear you on this side.
No, the city has not been asked for any funds for marketing directly. Obviously, we have a lot of staff time.
Chris?
I've heard the question posed a few different times, but I haven't really heard a good concrete answer. So either we don't have one, or let me know this. But what exactly, for all this is going to be a significant contribution, financial contribution for our club and from the new club as well. Do we know exactly what we're getting out of this? Are we getting a confirmed meeting time, meeting space, a certain amount of space? What if we want to have a party? Is that going to cost us extra? Are we getting any extra additional rights to that? I'd feel a lot more comfortable knowing kind of what the end goal is, or where we're going to end up with this project.
That's a fair question. First of all, the club is not making a huge investment in this. The club has not been asked for any capital funds at all. The club has only been asked for marketing expenses associated with the campaign, and that's all. So I would tend to agree with you if the committee came to the club and said, we want a $10,000 commitment for capital expenses. We're not doing that. All we're asking is $1,000 for expenses. It's going to be up to each and every individual member within this club to decide if they want to support the Scout Hut Committee and how much they want to support it for. And if that's the case, they will make their own personal contribution, and that whatever they decide to contribute will be tax deductible, as it will be contributed to a 501c3 tax deductible donation account. So will there be perks associated with both clubs? You know, we haven't discussed that. There will be a naming right. We've already generally agreed on that. It will be the Rotary Scout Hut, just like the Rotary Amphitheater exists right now. So we'll have, if successful in raising $100,000, the city, I'm sure, will support that concept of it being a Rotary Scout Hut, which would be kind of cool. If and when we ever decide to use that Scout Hut, it'll be up to the city to determine pricing, or if there's special pricing that will affect the Rotary. We're not going to predetermine that ahead of time. That's not, you know, we're not going to hold that over the city's head. We're doing this as a civic contribution. And all the support we're giving to this is pretty much human support. You know, the volunteer time. I'll tell you what, I've never seen the generosity of volunteer time jump up like this. When we said we were going to do this, remember we've announced this at 2 different meetings. This is the 3rd meeting that we've talked about the Scout Hut. After those 2 different announcements that I made, volunteers came forward. We got 7 people from this club that just stepped up and said, yeah, we're on board. What can we do? So that's what our commitment is in terms of human time. Did I answer your question?
Allison has a question.
I thought I heard that the Rotary clubs were going to be asked to help raise the funds.
We are raising the funds. That's what the whole committee is about.
So as the committee, we're not, as a club, going to be doing
Absolutely not.
fundraising events?
No, no. You may come to the events, and we will. Yeah, what we will do is, at some point in the near future, I will stand up in front of you and I will hand you each a brochure, and in that brochure, the back of that brochure will be a pledge form, and if each of you are committed, if any of you are committed to supporting the capital campaign, you'll fill out that pledge form, and that will be your own personal decision and your own amount that you want to contribute. I would hope, I just have my fingers crossed, that each Rotary Club would strive for 100%. I don't care if it's $5, $10, $20, $100, $1,000, whatever it is, but that each Rotary member would feel motivated to do something so that we could, as a group, say we're 100% behind this, even if it's, you know, $10 a piece. We had a question, Allison.
Yes, this might have already been looked at, but has anybody in the city or the club looked at making this a contributing project to the Upper Arkansas Economic Development Zone? It seems like it's a significant amount of money.
We could look at that. I mean, you know, we have 1 year left as an enterprise for the county, so I'm not sure timing-wise whether that works because we're losing our enterprise zone status.
Oh,
The last year.
Doing too well.
We're doing too well. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's time, but I'll certainly inquire.
What was the question?
The enterprise zone tax credits, whether this could be an eligible project for that. Like, for example, if you give money to the Friends of the Steam plant, you can get enterprise zone tax credits. Chaffee County we are on the list. We will lose that tax status at the end of this year. So.
Yeah, Lord.